And we are live.
Awesome.
I'm always looking off in the corner to say, and we are live, because when I'm going through there's this little red, like it's still loading. Anyway, that's what you all wanted to hear when you first signed on to say what?
The what?
So welcome back this week. We got Aaron, and me, Tim. Say What is the place where you ask and we answer questions about God, the Bible, and Christian faith. And so we've been on a joint series starting back to when we first did Say What about the difficult sayings of Jesus, but I'm not going to even pretend like we've been sticking to the difficult sayings of Jesus thing. More pointedly, we've been trekking along with our sermon series at Mount Carmel Christian Church called Let's Talk About It. And we've been kind of the bridge between subject matter that occurs in our sermons on Sunday mornings. And so today we get to talk about something that's rather fun. I don't know how controversial it is. I mean, I guess it's probably, all the stuff we're talking about is controversial to like varying different degrees. I
don't think people yell at each other about it.
But yeah, I was just going to say, given the climate of the world that it feels like we're living in 24/7 these days, I would say we're not hammering each other over the head over this one.
But you might snicker about someone else's opinions under your breath.
Exactly, which I would. I'm the kind of person that would do that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Apologies, I'm confessing my sin, but not any of you that are watching out there. I wouldn't do that to you, but other people that don't watch Say What, I'm definitely am. So, anywho, so we're going to be talking about the spiritual realm. Didi on Sunday, he talked about this notion of kind of when we think about this topic and all that goes into it, it's easy to come to it from a place of fear. But Didi ultimately landed on the idea that really the ones that ought to be feared are the people that have the power of God through Jesus behind them, because the demons and as Thatch said, the minions of hell will shudder because of the power of God through Jesus. And so you really can't go wrong with that landing spot. At the same time, though, there are always tons and tons of questions people have about angels, demons, miracles, ghosts, zombies. They're not talked about in the Bible, but people have questions sometimes. So, But anyway, so we
have lots of shows about zombies and ghosts and angels and demons.
Yeah.
And so
did you guys know that Netflix has brought back Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah, I saw that, man.
Yeah.
I love all that crypty crap, dude. It's great.
Yeah, man. I did watch a couple of episodes of the new one. I don't know that it's as good because is it Robert Stack, the dude that used to be the main actor that was on there? He had a trench coat, and he was great. So they went hostless. So but the mystery is still there and still unsolved. So what are you gonna do? So this is an interesting. What do you guys think about this stuff?
Well, I think. Sorry to interrupt you here.
I didn't even get a word out of my mouth, so I know if that constitutes as interrupting.
Thanks, Tim.
I beat you to the draw. Well, I was going to say I think what makes any kind of spiritual warfare or spirit realm talk so weird for us is, particularly in Western culture in general, is that we're so coddled by objectivity, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And pretty much you just about have to check that at the door when you start talking about this. So, not to say that there's not substantial admissible, evidence and discussion and reasoning you can use to come to a place where you understand the way that spirits and angels and stuff work better. Right. But there's not going to be some Ghostbusters trap or something where you're going to catch your guardian angel watching you at the bathroom at night, and then it's like, oh, got him this time. It doesn't. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't run that way. And
Which is a bummer because I need one of those traps for
right.
that very reason.
I mean,
I can't get them out.
Yeah.
Never mind. Anyway.
Now, all that said, this is a matter of great interest to me. Actually, I think it's really fascinating to consider ways that the spiritual world kind of interacts with our world, and to try to define what saying something like the spiritual world even actually means.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this.
For sure. How about you, Aaron?
Well, Aaron said, it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating for a lot of people, whether it's based on their own personal experiences, whether they feel like they've had an encounter with an angel or a demon or a ghost or some sort of spiritual being, or they've heard stories of it. But I think it intrigues and excitement a little bit. Like, I don't know if you guys ever did this when you were young and dumb, but driving places at night, places you probably shouldn't have been, but were supposedly haunted, right? It's something that I don't know what it is about it, but it excites something in you that you might experience something that isn't maybe a normal face-to-face interaction. Maybe that's a weird thing, but you say fascinating, but I think it's a fascinating topic, and it's a topic that we can clearly find in scripture too.
Yeah.
And so it's something that has been around a long time, for sure.
Yes.
And man, you are a natural thrill seeker, so it doesn't.
I am. I'm an adrenaline junkie, man.
It doesn't surprise me at all that you were hanging around the haunted graveyard.
I don't know about graveyards, but definitely.
Oh no, okay. I'm the only one.
Like some abandoned houses.
Right, yeah.
Was a dumb teenager.
No. Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. I come to this as both a believer and as a natural internal skeptic. And what I mean by that is I am a person of faith. I believe the testimony of Scripture, but I'm skeptical about claims, kind of stuff. And the reason is more because oftentimes the claims you kind of hear, whether it's in media or whether it's hearsay from people you encounter, seems very much detached from the descriptions or explanations that you see in the Bible, or detached from even the worldview. Because in fact, you were kind of hinting at this here. Like I do think, like, in order to like grasp this realm as far as what Scripture has to say about it, you really do have to understand the worldview of the people and how it differs from ours today. I mean, even the fact that I just said that I'm both a believer but a skeptical person, in place, like, this was stuff that in that world and that culture, just people were not skeptical about.
Yeah.
It was kind of taken as an assumption, whereas here we're kind of more like, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it'd be fun to be scared, out of our socks over this sort of thing. But in terms of considering it as interactive in our day-to-day lives, not sure we think about it all that much. And maybe according to the biblical worldview or the biblical narratives, maybe we should be considering more about that interaction and intersection with our lives. And so I'm interested too in this topic. So yeah, I mean, so I guess starting off, I talked to both of you guys earlier today, separately, actually. We didn't have any kind of meeting or conference call or anything. And both of you guys brought up the same Jesus exorcism story.
It's the Aaron connection.
It is the Aaron connection. So would one of you guys dive into what the story's about, tell us about it, and jumpstart us here?
Yeah, I've actually got it pulled up here.
Okay.
It's I've got the version that's in Luke. There's another version of it in Matthew, both in chapter 8, Matthew 8 and Luke 8. But I got the one in Luke here because this one has a little bit more detail.
You think there's any meaning that both of them are chapter? I'm just kidding.
No. Well, we'll be talking about psychic links next week on the. So the heading for this is Jesus restores a demon possessed man, which is a compelling title, and it's Luke 8 starts verse 26. It says, they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is across the lake from Galilee. When Jesus stepped ashore, he was met by a demon-possessed man from the town. For a long time, this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house, but had lived in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell at his feet, shouting at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard, he had broken his chains and had been driven by the demon into solitary places. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, because many demons had gone into him. And they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. And as if that wasn't weird enough, a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. The demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he gave them permission. When the demons came out of the man, they went into the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When those tending the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people how the demon-possessed man had been cured. Then all the people of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them because they were overcome with fear. So he got into his boat and left. The man from whom the demons had gone out begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return home and tell how much God has done for you." So the man went away and told all over the town how much Jesus had done for him.
Nice.
Now, that story raises a lot of questions for me.
Yeah.
Because you see a lot of stories that kind of follow the path of just a healing narrative where Jesus will heal someone with epilepsy or with a touch, someone who's been bleeding, things like that. But this story, you get a little more detail into his power, and there's raises some questions for me. For instance, Jesus kind of seems to negotiate with these demons and things like that. So what do you guys think about this? What's your initial reaction to this story?
I mean, I think it's a story that if I would hear at nighttime around a campfire, I'd be scared. For real though, there's that setting is quite kind of scary. I mean, you're talking about a man who obviously wasn't living the way in societal norms, wasn't wearing clothes very often, right? At that time, you at least had some clothes on, and he's living in the tombs. I don't think that was normal for most people to live in the tombs. So right there, you're kind of like, man, this is kind of scary. And where society was like, this something's wrong with this guy, whether he's crazy, he's demon possessed or whatnot. And so they bound him, and he's time and time again broken away from those chains. So it shows you the power of whatever is possessing him. And then you have the moment where these demons know exactly who Jesus is. They know the power of Jesus, and they know that they have no power over Jesus. And so you have this interaction. And so, that's quite the story. I mean, that's when you're talking about detail, there's a lot of detail there that we're given. And I think it's just to show how powerful that these demons were that were possessing this man, but how powerless they were against Jesus as well. I think it's quite an interesting dynamic when you look at the power that these demons had over this man. And I don't know, I would love to know more history even behind it even more and study it even more. Why this man? Was that God's plan for this man? How did this happen? And then, you obviously have this interaction with Jesus and they want to flee. Why did they have to flee into anything? What happened after the pigs drowned? There's a lot of questions for me too, but it's quite intriguing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in our kind of prior offline conversation before we went live, the and kind of getting back to what I was saying, like in our intro pieces to this, there's a lot of assumed worldview, first century worldview going on in this text. Um, Namely, outright, the text says he's demon possessed.
Mhm.
It doesn't say some thought he was, but others didn't. Some thought he was crazy, others didn't. No, no, no. It just outright says this dude's demon possessed. It gives an explanation too that in his state, the whole idea of him living in tombs and being shackled, he has been rather than anyone in the community at large being able to help this person, whether it was because they felt they couldn't or because they didn't care to deal in any way. He has been ostracized or cast out from the larger community. He's not living the good life. Um, and so Jesus shows up and encounters this guy. And another thing that stands out to me in the story is just so we get this idea he's demon possessed.
Mhm.
Emphasis on possessed here. This guy's not in any sense of control over the situation. In fact, when Jesus speaks to him, the response is from the legion within him, not from him. Like he has no sense of humanity, dignity, autonomy at all. Everything has been stripped both from his community, both from these demons that are within him, and just he's and so where this gets really interesting is a lot of people focus on kind of the weirdness of the negotiation, so to speak, and don't send us into the abyss and everything like that. But if you boil it down to a more simple level, like there's a recognition on Jesus' part that this dude's in a bad way because of what's within, and rather than casting him out like everyone else has, he has the compassion to do something, and
Mhm.
not only compassion, but he has the power to do something, and he does.
Yeah.
And I think, and the reason I was excited that you guys both brought up this story was because to me, it actually it helps us to emphasize something that's really important to the New Testament worldview that may get lost on us today, and that is that often when we focus on the spiritual realm, we're interested in the frightfulness, that the chills it gives us, maybe the miraculousness of it on a positive side that we can benefit from. Most of us don't look at it as something outside of ourselves and something that we need a greater power beyond ourselves to deal with. And that's something that ends up being wildly consistent in the New Testament. You never see Peter, because we were talking about Peter a little earlier today, my guy. You never see Peter claim that he's got the power himself to perform a miracle or anything. It's attributed to Jesus. And so it's just an interesting thing from that vantage point.
Yeah.
So
No, I think you're talking about New Testament themes.
yeah,
The general arc of the story too, which is encouraging, is that it's a physical manifestation of redemption.
yeah,
I mean, this is a person who's, as stated, utterly ostracized. I mean, and there's no hope for him. Now, it's terrifying that I can only imagine being that person
right,
and being like, you're looking back at all the people who,
right.
just lost all their pays because the demons came out of you.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to stay here. I don't want to stay
Right.
here with these people. Give me the demons back,
Hmm.
But that Jesus tells that guy who wants to come with him, no, listen, you're gonna stay here and explain this to these people in your town who just watched this
Mhm.
right after they kicked Jesus out.
Right.
So it's that Jesus recognizes that because that guy went through that harrowing experience
Mhm.
with that possession incident, that the fact that he once had those impure spirits empowers him to have a story
Mm.
that is compelling and a tool for him, a vehicle for the gospel. I think is the most significant thing about this story.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone can relate to that on some level.
Yeah, on the level of having a past
Yeah,
of trouble. No,
maybe not a
I'm not saying that. Well, because I'm glad that you actually said that because therein lie. I guess that therein lies my skeptical
okay.
uh, kind of vantage point. So, but I don't even think it's just me. Like I think that's why it's so important. And by the way, when I talk about the biblical worldview or whatever we want to call it, like I'm not saying that that was a past thing from the first century that's all nonsense, and we in our bright mindedness today have moved beyond that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there is a key difference in the way we look at the world around us, and I think that, so yes, in a world where it is a given that those realities are present, yes, his testimony is really, really, really strong. Um, in a world today where people either have a skeptical eye or worse toward that stuff, now that guy comes and shows up in 2020. Um, you know, we can't even agree with each other on whether 2 + 2 = 4, let alone hearing something like that. And so yeah, it's a really, really interesting thing to consider, not only how powerful his testimony must have been, but how different our world
Yeah.
is today in terms of our outlook.
And I think that's a good question to ask because we can look, I mean, that's not the only occasion in scripture where we're talking about demons or angels,
Mm-mm.
right? There's many scriptures that also talk about angels appearing, right? And bringing comfort, but also being frightened at first. And so, if you're someone that believes in the Bible, you can say, okay, I can understand that there's angels and demons. But
Mhm.
then in our own lives today, what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're right. If somebody like that demon possessed man that we just read about shows up in 2020, what are we going to say happened?
Yeah.
And now, while scripture says this was a demon possessed man, I would also venture to say that there was people that probably had differing opinions
Yeah.
on him.
Yeah.
Now, I think
Sure.
after that moment, those that heard
Mhm.
that story or witnessed that story would probably be like, oh, this all makes more sense now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for us today, when we don't have Jesus walking in the flesh, and you're right, we can't agree on very much in society. It seems like there's always dividing lines. But it brings up that question: okay, how do angels and demons translate today? Are
Hmm.
there ghosts
Yeah.
today? Are there spirits today? And what does that look like?
Well,
So,
it's and adding more complexity to that is that I know there are definitely cultures where people still engage with spirits in a very
mhm,
real and meaningful way to life.
Yeah.
In the sense that you think I've known guys who have done church work in like Haiti, for instance, where there's still a strong sense for a lot of folks there that there's possession, and I've been told stories about
Mhm.
demon possessions and exorcisms
Yes.
and stuff. Now, I wasn't there. I mean, this is all secondhand, but it's like there are people in the world who still perceive that as a meaningful part of real life. Now, me, I'd say I've never encountered a person who had
Mhm.
a demon. I've never seen a ghost, or an angel, or so I don't know if you guys have had any experiences like that. It's a complicated thing in my mind. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it. Because I guess my initial feeling is, well, I guess that stuff just doesn't happen as much today. But why would that be?
Well, one thing, what if it didn't happen that much then either? That's something we don't often consider. There's a line, I'll butcher it, so I'll paraphrase because I don't have the text open right now. But in the end of the Gospel of John, where John says, Jesus did so many things and said so many things that if I wrote all of them down, they'd fill libraries.
Hmm.
I've written this so that you will believe. So the
Yeah.
idea being that in the Gospel of John, at least specifically, but you can extrapolate the idea onto the other Gospels, then we're getting a small snapshot. I mean, we're talking about someone that if you take the kind of the ages, and I think in Luke, and you extrapolate, Jesus was about 30 when this happened, and then maybe roughly 33. Who knows? People do the age guessing game all the time, but the point is, even if you think about the amount of detail in one's life over a 3-year span,
Hmm.
and we're talking about books that, depending on your reading pace, you can read rather quickly through in one sitting. Obviously, not like reading Philemon. That one's real short, or
Hmm.
or so on. But you still these aren't 400-page novels we're looking at here. And so maybe, I'm just throwing this out there, maybe the fact that we have these instances show up in these texts, especially where there's some, Matthew and Luke recounts what feels or looks like a similar occurrence.
Hmm.
What if these didn't happen all that often? And so these were the stories that we get because they're so powerful. They are so rare that they bring about the power of Jesus as the Son of God. And so we need to see those stories. But on Tuesday, he was just hanging out by the lake, catching some fish non-miraculously with the rest of his buddies. I don't know, but that would make for a great story. So, oftentimes they think, well, that might not happen much today. Maybe it was a rare thing there. And then you run into, this is again pure speculation, but if the evil side of the spiritual realm was hitting up people with demon possession and showing up in their soundboards and all this stuff on a regular basis, maybe it was because there weren't other trappings to produce sinful results in people like there are in the United States of America where we live. And so in a place in the rest of the world, I'll dare say it, there are people that are more rich in faith than we are here. And so that sort of manifestation may not be that needed, although that's trying to get into the enemy's mind and figure out, what their whole, game plan is. I don't know, but, and I think ultimately, when I look at any of the stories where Jesus encounters that stuff, the whole point, or at least the point I walk away from, is this says a whole lot of good about Jesus.
Hmm.
And I don't think when we focus in on the spiritual realm today that's primarily our focus. We wonder if our loved ones walking around as a ghost, tapping on our window to make us feel comforted that they're still around, even though that wouldn't all be that comforting. We get infatuated with zombie shows. We think about all this weird stuff that's out of the norm, more about the thrill of it than we do about what God can do in light of it. And I don't know, I might be rambling here, but it,
Yeah.
They're
it has
good
me thinking.
ramblings.
I don't know if they're that good. Yeah, so I mean, there it was. Speaking of my guy Peter, we I told the guys we were having a show before the show because we started thinking of all the different all the different ghost stories, so to speak. Jesus walking on water and the disciples thinking he's a ghost. In Acts 12, Peter escapes from prison miraculously with the help of angels. And when he shows up at the door of the home he runs to, they don't initially let him in. And one person remarks, "It might be his angel." I have no idea what to do with that or make of that. I don't know if that means they thought Peter was manifesting as an angel, or if he had an angel on his behalf designated to him, which gets into weird things because like people like really like to think about guardian angels, and I'm gonna get in virtual trouble here, but I don't see a whole lot of scriptural basis for the idea that God has handpicked a particular angel for every person out there to help them win a baseball game. Angels in the outfield. Anyway, so yeah, it's just weird stuff. We could go on and on. You guys got anything else on this? That was not a good explanation for guardian angels. I apologize for throwing that in there so flippantly.
Yeah.
No, but I think you're right. I mean, this is a topic where you can go on and on and on, right? Because you have, and what angels? Because I think people always wonder, okay, what angels look like? Because we always have a picture in our head. Like we'd even do this about each other, right? If you've ever heard somebody on the radio but never seen their face, you kind of have an idea in your head what you think they look like. And I think we do that same thing with angels and demons and stuff like that. Like, what's an angel? What does it look like? Right. And because we have TV shows and movies that might show angels as being, soft and friendly and nice looking. Do they look like that? What do demons look like? I don't, what does Satan look like? Because we've talked about that a little bit, like a few weeks ago. Like, what does Satan look like? Is it the red dude with some horns? You know what I mean? And so we have all these ideas of what things look like. And they probably aren't what they actually look like at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I guess I will add this thing into in terms of kind of another reason that I don't think we really mentioned as to why the interest level in this goes up, but this is more of maybe my compassionate or pastoral side, and that is that especially in times of grief, death, loss, that's when a lot of these questions really, really come up. And I have to be honest with you that as a minister, I don't think us ministers have ever got a real great firm handle on, because those moments are the moments where, see, like I can talk here now and be like, yeah, that's not in the Bible. Yeah, that's not in the Bible. And then all of a sudden that very thing comes up in the conversation with someone that's grieving a loved one. And now it's kind of like, this isn't the time to get on my high horse right now and push my, glasses, if I had them up, and be nerdy and be like, well, actually, because the people are grieving, and yet, because it doesn't feel like that's the right time, a lot of time us ministers, we might not agree, but we just kind of nod along and never kind of come back to or take the right moment to go there to kind of course correct people, because I believe that as Christians, we have a wonderful, wonderful hope for what happens after death, just to put it out there. And I would really hate for people to misconstrue what that is because of some fanciful things they've grown up thinking and that they've now applied in these contexts. Whether it's their loved one becoming an angel, you hear that all the time. Oh, now God has another angel up there in heaven, or or, if you're into like the scare stuff, I wonder if my loved one's walking around in the bathroom every night. No one's ever said that in a grief setting. Don't worry. But the reality is what, the Bible kind of teaches in summary form here again, is you get a lot of notions about rest until the end, when the resurrection comes, and Jesus was the first raised from the dead, and we can expect that resurrection to occur for us, and whatever that looks like, which I don't have an answer to that, and we can expect eternity with God. It's very vague. It's not very descriptive, but it's good. And I think at the end of the day, we may have just spent 35 minutes talking about like the peculiarities about this stuff, and maybe our best landing spot is still to go where the sermon went, which is ultimately that these things are scary. They do induce fear. Even angels, by the way, made people scared in the Bible.
Oh yeah.
So they're frightening because they're not normal. They're not normal experiences for people, and some of them are not good. But at the end of the day, we have a God who is all powerful and capable of overcoming that which gives us fear, and that is a good thing to have faith in, over and against our interest in the peculiarities of the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
So
right on, man.
I don't know. I don't have any. I mean, we could talk about this all night, but I don't think people
Absolutely.
would continue watching. I'm just kidding.
That's good, man.
Well, just to give you all a clue, the next couple weeks, we're going to get into stuff on environmentalism. We're going to be tackling the issue of prejudice, justice, politics.
Yeah.
Some ones that we're really dealing with right now, right?
So
It'll be good.
if you liked or hated what we've said so far, at least tell people about it. Either way, whether you liked it or, because apparently bad press is still good press. So I don't know, but if you're interested at all, keep watching and tell others, because we enjoy talking about this stuff, and hopefully it's helpful to you. So this has been another episode of Say What?
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. Have a fantastic night, everyone.
Wow.
See you guys.